Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. We're jumping into a super intense and honestly, pretty jaw-dropping moment from the Gospels. It's a story about Jesus, Peter, and a sharp rebuke that reveals a profound spiritual truth. We're going to be looking at Matthew chapter 16, specifically verses 22 and 23. This is where Peter, just moments after his incredible confession of Jesus as the Christ, finds himself on the receiving end of one of the sternest corrections in the entire Bible. So, let's set the scene. Jesus has just asked his disciples, "Who do you say that I am?" And it's Peter who steps up with that landmark declaration, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." Jesus praises Peter for this, saying this revelation came not from flesh and blood, but from his Father in heaven. It's a high point, a moment of incredible spiritual insight for Peter. But then, the mood shifts dramatically. Right after this, Jesus begins to tell his disciples about his impending suffering, death, and resurrection in Jerusalem. He's laying out the divine plan, the very path he must walk to accomplish our salvation. How do you think the disciples reacted? Remember, they were expecting a conquering king, a political Messiah who would overthrow Roman rule and restore Israel's glory. The idea of their Messiah suffering and being killed was completely foreign and unacceptable to them. And this is where our main story kicks in. Matthew 16, verse 22 says, "And Peter took him aside, and began to rebuke him, saying, 'Far be it from you, Lord. This shall never happen to you.'" Let's pause and really think about this. Peter, a mere man, takes the Son of God aside to correct him. He's essentially telling Jesus, "You've got it all wrong." This isn't how it's supposed to go. Peter is operating entirely out of his natural human affection and logic. He loves Jesus, and the thought of his master suffering is unbearable. He can't reconcile the glorious Messiah he just confessed with a suffering servant. In his mind, strength, power, and victory don't involve a cross. Peter's intention seems good, right? He's trying to protect his friend and leader. He's speaking from a place of human love and concern. But look at how Jesus responds. This is the crucial part. Verse 23, "But he turned and said to Peter, 'Get behind me, Satan, you are a hindrance to me, for you are not setting your mind on the things of God, but on the things of man.'" Wow, imagine being Peter in that moment. Just a minute ago, you were called blessed, and now you're being called Satan. Why such a harsh rebuke? Jesus wasn't saying Peter himself was literally Satan. Instead, he was identifying the source behind Peter's words. The suggestion to avoid the cross, to sidestep the suffering, was the very same temptation Satan had presented to Jesus in the wilderness, a path to glory without the pain, a crown without the cross. Satan was using Peter's very human, very natural love and concern as a vehicle for his own agenda. The enemy's goal was to frustrate God's plan of redemption. If Jesus had listened to Peter, if he had chosen the easier path suggested by human logic and affection, salvation would not have been accomplished. The cross was not a tragic accident, it was the divine necessity, the very heart of God's plan to save humanity. This passage reveals a critical lesson for all of us. Good intentions are not enough. Our natural concepts, our human way of thinking, even our feelings of love and compassion, can become obstacles to God's will if they are not submitted to Him. Peter was setting his mind on the things of man, which meant prioritizing comfort, safety, and worldly success over the things of God, which in this case meant sacrifice, obedience, and the path of the cross. Jesus' response, "Get behind me, Satan," is a declaration that nothing, not even the well-intentioned plea of a close friend, would deter him from his divine mission. He immediately identified the spiritual opposition hiding behind Peter's natural concern. The word hindrance here, or stumbling block in some translations, is powerful. Peter, by trying to be helpful from a human standpoint, was actually becoming a stumbling block on Jesus' path to the cross. This shows us how subtle the enemy can be. He doesn't always come with obvious, evil temptations. Sometimes, he He uses our own logic, our emotions, and even the people we love to try and steer us away from God's perfect will. He whispers ideas that sound reasonable, safe, and loving from a worldly perspective, but they are in direct opposition to the higher spiritual purposes of God. So, what's the takeaway for us today? First, we need to be discerning. We must learn to distinguish between the things of man and the things of God. This requires us to be saturated in God's Word and constantly seeking His perspective through prayer. When we face decisions, we should ask ourselves, is this based on my own comfort and understanding? Or is it aligned with God's revealed will and character? Second, this story is a powerful reminder that our mind is a spiritual battlefield. The enemy seeks to use our thoughts, our concepts, and our natural affections to frustrate God's work in and through us. That's why the Apostle Paul tells us to take every thought captive to obey Christ. We must actively submit our thinking to God. Third, we need to see how crucial the cross is. Jesus' firm reaction shows that any teaching or idea that minimizes or removes the cross from the center of the Christian faith is not from God. The cross is not an optional extra. It is the very power of God for salvation. It represents the death of the old self and the path to new life. Finally, this account isn't just a condemnation of Peter. It's also a story of grace. Jesus rebukes Peter, but he doesn't reject him. He says, "Get behind me," which is a call to get back into the proper position of a disciple, following the Master, not trying to lead him. Peter learned from this painful lesson, and he went on to become a pillar of the early church, even eventually being martyred for his faith, following his Lord down a path of suffering. This event in Matthew 16 is a sobering and vital lesson. It teaches us to be wary of our own natural concepts and to always prioritize the things of God over the things of man. It calls us to embrace the way of the cross, not as a tragedy to be avoided, but as the wisdom and power of God. I hope this exploration has given you some food for thought. It's a deep passage with so much to teach us about following Christ authentically. This message is based on spiritual materials found at lsm.org. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this helpful, please give the video a like, and consider subscribing for more content like this. We'd love to have you as part of our community. See you in the next video.